Well, good morning as we're getting situated here real quick. Couple things before we get started. The first things first is this morning, obviously, we want to share a little bit about our mission experience, our mission trips this summer. I know you've known about them. You've probably heard about them a lot, and that's good. But we took our students on 3 different mission opportunities this summer. It started with a group that went and served as camp staff at Green Country Camp. And then mid-July, we took a trip to Tulsa, and then we wrapped up our summer in New York City. So we see a couple different colored T-shirts this morning. The blue was our New York City trip. The green was our students that went to Tulsa with us. And so before we get started, the first thing I just want to tell you is thank you. Thank you for your support. We could not have been able to accomplish what we were able to accomplish, to take these trips, to have these experiences without your support, your prayer support, your financial support, your encouragement. Without that, this wouldn't have been possible. So even though you see the teams here, these were the students that stepped onto the mission field, whether in Green Country or in Tulsa or in New York City. You were there as a part of that with us, and we couldn't be more grateful for that. And so this morning, I really just want to give the students and our teams a chance to share what God did in their life, what they were able to see God do as part of a mission team. And so we have a couple questions that we're going to talk through, and we'll just bounce back and forth. If there's a mic in front of you, go ahead and grab it. Melody, if you'll grab that mic, we'll just pass them back and forth, and we will go from there. Just to give you a little background, our team served as camp staff at Green Country. When we were in Tulsa, we served with a ministry called Mobile Missions, which focuses on meeting the needs and serving people in mobile home communities throughout the Tulsa area. They've expanded to also apartment complexes, and so they are in 27 different mobile home parks or apartment complexes throughout the Tulsa area. So our time there, we did a Bible camp in the mornings, and then in the afternoons, we went out and served around the Tulsa area. This year was unique. The storm had just went through Tulsa, and so we were able to actually go serve with Samaritan's Purse around the Tulsa area, moving limbs and trees and stuff like that, while others of our team stayed back and painted and helped out the mobile missions folks at their facility there in Tulsa. In New York, we served with a church called Everlasting Church. There's a church plant there in the Bronx in New York, and so we were able to do some street ministry for them, canvassing, surveying. One morning we picked up trash, and really just getting to meet and interact with the people that live there in the neighborhood. We were in Pelham Parkway, which is a neighborhood within the Bronx. So I don't want to take too much of what the team may share, so we're going to jump right into questions, and then we'll go from there. So honestly, let's just do this. Let's go down the line, and let's introduce ourselves first. So we'll start here. I'm Jess, and I was privileged to work with this group of students in these teams this summer.
My name is Jordan Stedman. I had the honor to intern this summer in the student ministry department.
My name is Riley Kelly.
I'm Melody Williams.
Emily Goodwin.
BJ Lorenzen.
Macy Corey.
Aiden Lorenzen.
Luke Lorenzen.
Liam Connor.
Landon Adams.
Tucker Kinman.
Camden Martin.
Hawkins Tickle.
Zeke Johnson.
Ginger Lackey.
All right, perfect. So now we know everyone. There'll be a test at the end. No, I'm kidding. So here's the first question that I really just want us to be able to share. And it may seem generic, it may seem whatever, but the whole reason why we went, right? Why we went as part of a team is what were you able to see God do at any point in time? And we're going to just cover all 3 trips at the same time. So if you went to New York or Tulsa, that doesn't matter. Just jump in and share. But what was what were you able to see God do? What were you able to experience? Maybe that you didn't think you would, or that it's just stuck with you since you've been home. So who wants to go first? Don't everyone jump at once. Right.
So we were split up into our groups at Tulsa, and in my group, we went to this different mission, like the mobile home area, and the kids that we ministered to, it was literally the last day, and all of our kids made a decision. So all of them except one gave their life to Christ, and that other one recommitted her life back to Christ. So.
Something to remember is the Green Country Camp. I wasn't able to go to the Tulsa one, but I went to Green Country Camp and the New York City one. And they definitely had things in common and things in different, but I think it's important to see them on the same level and not to treat them any differently, because we're still there for the same reason. And even though we learn different things, like Green Country Camp, we were serving mostly kids, and you learned both trips how to serve with a servant's heart, but Green Country Camp definitely taught you how to be patient, especially with some of the kids. And so yeah, I think it was cool to see just how to go on both of those trips and to see the difference between them.
Something cool that stuck out to me was there's 26 million people in New York, and I think he said that only 4% claim to be Christian in all of that. And it just kind of stuck out to me. That's little over 1.5 million in there. And 1.5 million is a lot of people to us here, but out of 26 million people, that's not a whole lot. And only of the 4% claim to be Christian. So it's kind of got to keep in mind.
While they're deciding who talks next down there, I think one thing that really stuck out to me was we go to Beautiful Feet a lot, and I'm on the street team usually there, and so it's sharing the gospel, telling people about Jesus, and praying and hoping they come to know the Lord during that week, and there's different things on Beautiful Feet, different things that you can do there. So I kind of went into it thinking man, God, just use us to bring more people to know you, this trip. And when I got there, it was that wasn't necessarily our, what God had planned for us there. It was finding Christians and telling them about this church. We ran into people that lived in the same building as the church that were believers in Christ that did not know that there was a church, and they're we've lived here 3 years. Oh my gosh, there's a church? We're believers in Christ. I grew up Baptist. I grew up going to church, and now we get to go and worship. It just gives me goosebumps knowing that God doesn't just use Christians to lead other lost people to him. He leads Christians to find Christians, to lead them into a building of worship, and to surround themselves with other believers. So it was really cool for me to just to learn that too for myself, that it's not just being a Christian's not just leading or finding other people that's not believers. It's also finding other Christians and just being there for each other too.
Yeah, and to that point, Nicole and I were talking about this on the way to church this morning. We're so used to seeing a church on every corner, and it's usually marked by a cross or a steeple, or there's something that identifies that building as a church. We were in the Bronx. 1.5 million people live in the Bronx, and the neighborhood we worked in specifically had 30,000 people. And the pastor that we worked with has been in the Bronx since 2016, 17, around there. And he knows of 4 other churches in the Bronx for 1.5 million people. And only 2 of those churches, their primary language is English. So out of the 4 churches, only 2 of them speak English. And so there could be more, but unless you know the church is there, because the church we work with met in a community center on the first floor of a 6-story apartment building. Unless you know it's there, you don't know it's there. So it seems foreign to us, like what BJ's talking about, that, well, how do you not know there's a church there? Because obviously you know that where we are, there's churches everywhere. So to be able to connect people that way was unique and something that I also had not anticipated. So that just gives some perspective there.
What I thought was really cool is that, so the pastor that planted the church there, he moved there about 7 years ago, and he didn't have a lot, and feel compelled to move to New York City is a big order. It's a big thing to do like that. It's kind of hard to do. It's a unique environment and everything, but he had so much faith in God that he was going to see him through and everything, and we'll talk about more later about like what he went through and everything, but to have that much faith that he would see him through and he would provide for him, and not knowing what was going to happen or how he was going to do it, but he felt compelled to go do it, and he trusted God to come move and plant a church there. It was pretty cool to see.
Yeah, they started the church with the pastor, his wife, and their little girl. So they moved there, and that was the church.
Something that really stood out to me was just the pure number of people, 1.5 million in the Bronx, and just 30,000 in the neighborhood alone. It was an extremely diverse place, and they were all tied together somehow. And I feel like that Christ ties us all together as well. And how there's, like as Luke was saying, only 4% of people in the Bronx are believers in Christ. And how, like, the church that we served in, Everlasting Church, was not a very large place. They had maybe about 20, 25 people per both services. Yet the amount of passion that they had for Christ blew me away.
For Tulsa, the theme verse for the week was, "Here I am, send me," and it was about you don't need to go places really far away to find unsaved people. You can find unsaved people like practically in your own backyard. They are everywhere. And they really nailed home just that entire theme, that you can find unsaved people anywhere and that there are so many ways to reach out to them.
Like what Hawkins said, their verse was Isaiah 6:8, and we can serve anywhere, not just away from our homes, but in our homes. Like last year, we went to Michigan Place, and we had like a VBS, and we did the same thing this year.
One of the things that I realized from the trip was God put me in a place that was way out of my comfort zone, as in talking to other just random people. That grew me, but these kids right here are amazing. I was a leader, but I looked at them as leaders because I know it was really difficult at first because it was culture shock for them. But the boldness that they had to walk up to people on the street, they had no idea, and to accept the no's. No, I don't want to take a survey. No, I don't want to do, it's hard when you have 10 no's and then finally you're like, oh yes, we got somebody that's going to talk to us. So it was a confidence builder, I think. I know that for me to come back and now I look at people and I go, oh yeah, I can go talk to them. So that was something I came back with. Also, it was great to see how God works in appointments, and I've learned that the older that I get. Went to church on Sunday, and I can't help but throw out one of the names that we encountered on a Sunday morning. There was this lady that came in, and she came with a friend, and the friend later told us that, yeah, she had told her friend that, I want what you have. How many of us show that where people can look at us and go, hey, I want what you have? So that was a big eye-opener for me. No matter where I'm at, I know my platform, my ministry, I feel like is in my school. I want the people I work with to look at me and go, I want what you have. So that was something that I came back with. Little did I know, BJ had sent me a text before service or in between service that day, and she said, God's going to work in that lady with you. Didn't even see that. God used both of us to help bring her to the Lord, along with her friend. So God had an appointment that day. And I praise God that he was allowed to use us in so many ways that I didn't realize sometimes we don't see how God's working. But we have to trust and have faith that he is.
I know I always go on mission trips, and you kind of have the mindset, like, how can I be an encouragement to these people? And it never fails that you come back, and they were more of an encouragement sometimes to you than you were to them. And just seeing, obviously we talked about this great lostness that there is there in New York City, but seeing like how the few people that love Jesus, how much they love Jesus and how devoted they were to him. Like it was a lifestyle of worship, and that was so encouraging for me.
So that we were at the Everlasting Church that Sunday, and we packed before the church blessing bags, and afterwards we handed them out, and we had to go on the street and hand a couple out, but it was just awesome to see how happy and appreciative people were they were free groceries in the bags, and we packed those beforehand. And it was just awesome to see how grateful people were, and we got people to come to service through that, so I thought that was pretty cool.
So obviously, kind of starting to get the heart of what God kind of did through us, or in us more than through us, while we were there. But everyone I've talked to, we have a story, that God did something that just stuck. So I want a couple of you guys to share maybe your favorite story from serving in the Bronx that, man, it has stuck with you. Maybe it wasn't in the Bronx. Maybe it was riding the subway or something like that, which, by the way, riding the subway in New York City could be a mission trip of its own, if we're being honest. But we won't get into all those stories. You guys can ask individuals later if you want to, because we certainly have some. But, man, I want you guys to just share spiritually, man. What's one of the things that God really, I'm never going to forget that. I saw God move, and maybe you've already shared it, and that's perfect, no problem. But you saw God move, and you say, man, I'm never going to forget the way God moved in that moment. And it could be something very simple. It could be something big. Ginger shared her story there about that. What was that lady's name at church, Ginger? Jackie, yeah. So share what you're not going to forget, that story that you're not going to forget. Don't everyone share their story at once. Here, go ahead, Riley, thank you.
Me, Jordan, and Liam were taking surveys, and we ran into this guy named Joshua. And we were asking him the questions like, do you think this neighborhood's religious? Are you religious? And then we asked him who Jesus Christ was to you. And he said, somebody that I need more of. And Jordan asked what he could pray over him. And then he just started crying in the street corner and just bawling his eyes out. And he was telling us that today was his 28th birthday and that he was so happy that he stopped us because he feels so behind in life. And if we could just pray over him. And the entire time we were crying, and I was trying to hold back my tears. And it was just a really cool experience how God placed us there at the exact moment as we were crossing the street where he was crossing.
Okay, so we were on our excursion day, we were at Chick-fil-A, and one of the kids named Bryce, he had on a shirt that said Jesus Freaks, and one of the workers, he apparently writes music, and he had a new song coming out called Jesus Freaks, so he got to get a picture with of the shirt and stuff for an idea, and so we got to talk to him, and it was really cool to hear a story of how he ended up in New York, and he lives in the Bronx, and it turns out that he was looking for a church to go to, so we got to give his information to the pastor and everything, so I thought that was cool.
It was amazing, though. We talk about how big New York City is, 26 million people. But what Macy just shared, it's amazing how small it felt sometimes. Because that guy was in Times Square, like he was in Manhattan. He lived in the Bronx, though. We were working in the Bronx. One of the phrases we heard this summer, what are the odds that you would meet someone like that? And what are the odds? 100% that God would put us in that place to connect with that guy, to get him connected with the church that we were working for. So God can do whatever he wants. And so that was exciting to see.
So that Tuesday, we were out doing surveys, and we had groups of 3, and it was me, BJ, and we talked about Bryce. He came from a different church, and so we did our first session. We had a couple good surveys. It was like we didn't have a lot of people say no, so we felt pretty encouraged. And we went out the second time, and we probably had like 10 people in a row tell us no. We kept on like having different people try to ask, try to get different people to respond, and like it just kept on, everybody kept saying no. So we were crossing the street in the corner, and we saw this lady coming up towards us, and she had earbuds in. And so I said to BJ, he's like, you want to go ask her? She goes, sure. And so we go stop her. She takes her earbuds out, and we had a list of survey questions. And the first one was like, do you live in this neighborhood? You want to take a quick survey? And then it was, what do you think one of the biggest needs is? And a lot of people on all of our surveys said it need to be clean because it was filthy. It was a filthy, it was kind of disgusting. But then the next question was, do you think this neighborhood's religious? So you start getting on the topic of talking about religion and get them thinking. And she said it's mixed, and it's a very mixed place, very mixed religions, cultures, and everything. And then we asked her, is she a religious person? And you saw her kind of get excited and talked about, she immediately answered yes. And then we asked her, who is Jesus Christ to you? And she started talking about how this powerful figure who is very important to her and everything. And then BJ started talking to her about, she started telling us about how she's been away from God, and that the night before she prayed that she was angry at God, but she's ready to get back right with him. And she needed guidance. She wanted God to send somebody her way. She wanted a church to go to. So she's telling all this, and VJ is getting really excited and talking to her and everything. And she's just telling us like her whole story, like how she grew up in church. She always believed in God. She was always willing to serve God. But at a point in her life, things went wrong, and she got angry with God, and she kind of went away from him for a little bit. But it was really cool to see that God had an appointment for us to meet her, and there's a reason that we didn't talk to any of those people, because then we went and met with her. And so that next night, we had the game night, and Miss Knight was there, and so we got to talk to her, and it was really cool. She got connected with the church, so it was a really cool experience to see how God can use anybody at any time if he wants to.
So we had 3 other kids. We had Bryce, CJ, and Caleb come with us, and I thought I was nervous for this trip, but they all came by themselves. Caleb came with his parents. They were other sponsors. But CJ and Bryce came by themselves, and it was just awesome to see God work through them. They had to be terrified. I would have been just to come, because we had this whole entire group together, so even though we were nervous, we still had each other. They were by themselves. So I just thought it was really cool that they, even though they were by themselves and didn't have anybody else, they came along with us and helped us out.
Perfect. So let's do this. The next question is, what do we do now? So we went on this trip. We've either been to Tulsa, Green Country, New York City. What do we do next? Because like we talked last week upstairs in the wake up, the tragedy would be if it just stopped. If we went on a mission trip and man, it was great and God moved and we were able to experience God in possibly a different way or a fresh way, the tragedy would be if we got on a plane or we got on a van and came home and it stopped there. So the question is, and we can do this quick, you don't have to give a long answer, but what do we do now? How did God change you? What has God kind of led you to, how's God led you to live differently as a result of this trip now that we're back home? And some of you have already shared that, and that's fine, but...
One thing that I think I can take away from the trip is just serving our community. Like, I think I served that neighborhood in the Bronx, like, in 1 week, way better than I have here in who knows how long, which is weird to think about. But just taking like care of Joplin or like a lot better, and just to see how like people see me doing that, and it's a good example.
Something that I try to live my life by now is that the mission hasn't stopped. We may have got back on August 4th, but it's still going. I feel like a prime example is when I was at school one day and I was wearing a shirt I got from Central Park. And a new assistant principal that just moved to my school district was asking me about it when I was walking to lunch. So I had a brief opportunity to share about the mission trip with him. And that just showed me how it doesn't matter where you are, you can always share the love of Christ with others.
As Jess said, we don't stop here. I know a couple of us in my group, we had talked about there are so many parks here in Joplin. Now, do we have the trash that New York City has around our parks? No, by no means we don't. But a couple of us had talked about maybe getting together and one Sunday afternoon a month, just hitting the parks and picking up trash where there is trash, and then being out and being able to talk to people in the parks around Joplin. So that's an idea that we've some of us have thrown around to do. So letting people know that we love our community. It's not just, and that's something I took back, was seeing others how Jesus sees them. In our human minds, sometimes the first thing we want to do is judge people. I think that's just the humanness in us. And being able to see people through Jesus' eyes and let go of that first judgment that you might see from others. The Everlasting Church, it was so full of love. Like, in a way that I had never experienced for people of such a wide range of cultures. They were loving in the most humble way. The youth pastor and his wife, our group got to actually go have dinner, or lunch. We took our New York pizza to their house, their apartment for lunch. The humbleness that they shared their home with us, and they expressed that they were so blessed to have an apartment that had room. Guys, in our world, that apartment didn't have room. We were packed in their living room. I think there was 9 of us in our group. We filled up their living room. So I came back to my house, and I thought, oh my gosh, their apartment would fit almost in my living room and kitchen. And how humbled and happy they were to have that roomy, spacious apartment. So that was a humbleness that I took, as in they're willing to share Christ with others in their home when they don't have a lot of room. But to them, they had lots of room.
To kind of go off what Ginger said about seeing others how Jesus sees us. So our first day there, we go to get on the subway. And it's crazy. Like, who in here has been to New York? Okay, a few of you. So a few of you know what the subway is, right? So now try to have 21 people with luggage, trying to all stay together. So Jess was like, okay, so BJ, you're in charge of these 3 girls. Jordan, you're in charge of these 3 kids. And so we were all in charge, right? And so I have the shyest, most quiet girl. So you have to do your Metro card, and you have to get through the Turner thing fast. And there's people shoving you, trying to get through. Let's go, 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 go. So we all get through, and here's Macy. And like I turn around, I'm like, okay, I got one, two's my girls. Where's my other girl? Where's my other girl? And there's Macy stuck. Her card won't work. She's halfway through the 3-prong turn. People are like shoving her, and I just remember this feeling of I looked at her and I said, look at me. I'm not going to let anything happen to you. You're going to be fine. You're going to get through this. And she goes, but like it just. Like, my thought was, I've got to calm her down, and she's got to trust me that I'm not going to let anything happen to her. She was shaking. I was shaking. Like, we were both, I was trying not to show it, but it was terrifying. And so we grabbed her luggage, and I pull her over the thing, and people are still shoving us. And we get on the subway, and she's still, like, shaking. I'm shaking. But after that, it was so easy. But that night, I lay in bed, and I'm thinking about the day and how crazy it is, and God so clearly said, this last year's been kind of tough on you. Like, that's what I want you to see in me, is I want you to look at me, towards me, where I can tell you, I've got you. Like, I've got you. Do you trust me? Do you believe that I'm going to take care of you? So that's kind of one of the biggest things that.
Yeah, and I can't thank Jordan and Ginger and BJ enough for going and being a part of our team, because like BJ said, there's no way 20 of us could have traveled. It was best to split up into groups, and there's no way 20 people traveling together would have been a success. It would have been disastrous. But does anybody have anything else before we wrap up our time here sharing that, man, you really just wanted to share, but you didn't get a chance to yet? Anyone? Okay, Emily, go.
I guess I'll share. Okay, I was just, like, right when I got, like, in the trip, I was really nervous because, like, I've never done anything like this before. And I really thought New York people were, like, really rude and they would, like, always reject you. But once you talk to them and you, like, engage with them, they're not as mean as you think they are. They just look mean. So I just think that I don't want to look at people like that anymore. I want to look at them like they're the same, like, as New Yorkers. They look mean, but they're not. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. I was impressed by that too. They just move a lot faster and talk a lot faster than we do. Anyone else have anything that you want to share before we? Perfect. Church, let me tell you the honest truth. You're looking at some rock stars here. Students, go ahead and give them a round of applause, please. Because you guys can go ahead and take your chairs as you're doing that. Because like we said, New York, talk about, I don't know, fish out of water, whatever you want to say. It was definitely a culture shock for all of us, I think, is a fair way to say that. But they took it in stride. We encouraged them the night before. We spent the night in Oklahoma City before a early morning flight, Friday morning. I encouraged them to just be flexible and be available, and God would use us, and it would be a great time. And they were that the entire time we were there. Rock stars probably an understatement, but they did so well.